Mandatory evacuations are in place for over 20 counties in Florida. Highways there nearly turned into parking lots in some places as people made their way north. But at this point, is it too late to leave? To answer that question, we turn to Kathleen Koch in Washington. Kathleen is the founder of Leaders Link, an organization that helps local leaders share disaster lessons. She's also the author of Rising from Katrina, How My Mississippi Hometown Lost It All and Found What Mattered. Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us. Clearly, you've had personal experiences and you have expertise on this. Let me start with the pressing issue. With traffic at this point, should people continue to make their way out of Florida? Or is it safer to shelter in place at this point?
Stephanie, they're running out of time. They're running out of time really quickly because of the last place you want to be when the storm comes in, and we're talking about Sunday, I guess we're going to start feeling those effects, is in a car. You don't want to be stuck in an automobile on a highway in an enormous multi-mile-long traffic jam. So I believe the governor himself is saying, if you haven't left by midnight tonight, then don't get out there. It's time to hunker down and find as safe a place as possible to ride this out. Okay,
and we're going to get into ways that people can hunker down and keep themselves safe if they're in that situation in a minute. But I want to bring up another issue. 20% of Florida's population is over the age of 65, some much older than that. What factors should people weigh when deciding to evacuate?
Well, I have family members making this very difficult decision right now. My husband's cousin is waiting with her mother there in Venice, and her mother is 89 years old, and she's on oxygen, and she's very frail. And his cousin is not going to leave. They're going to stay put. They're going to hunker down because she's afraid that the trip would kill her. So these are really tough, personal, life-changing decisions that people are making right now, and you have to know the health of your loved one. You have to know what they can manage and what they can't, and you have to have a plan. Because if you are in a low-lying area, in a very flat area of Florida, and where they're talking about a 5 or a 6 or a 10 or a 12-foot storm surge, you have to figure out what you're going to do in advance to get that person who is really relying on you to safety. Okay, so let's get into that a little bit more. How can people prepare if they cannot evacuate at this point? Make sure you have supplies, as much food and water as possible, flashlights, candles, even your outdoor yard lights, you know, those that are solar. You can bring those indoors and they will light your house for you. So it'll give you a little bit of light to work with when the power goes out. Have a plan to get somewhere high as possible. If you don't have a second story on your home, then you're talking about the attic. Do not go into the attic if you don't have an axe to cut your way through the roof. We saw many in Katrina in New Orleans in the flood there die because they could not get out of their attics. It's better to swim out your window, try to get to a tree, get to a boat, something of some higher ground than to drown in your own attic.
All right, the big concern is storm surge with Irma. As you mentioned, we're looking at up to a 20-inch storm surge. Is it going, 20 feet?
20 foot.
20 feet storm surge. That's massive. Is it going to be more severe than what Texans saw with Harvey?
In the way of storm surge, definitely more severe than what most of Texas saw. There were towns that were right on the water, Rockport, Aransas Pass, Port Aransas, where they did get some storm surge that was very significant, and you can see the destruction that was left behind. But I know that you have some photos of my hometown in Hurricane Katrina, where we were hit with perhaps the worst storm surge in U.S. history, more than 30 feet in places. So, for instance, we have a shot of a turn-of-the-century bed and breakfast before the hurricane, and then after. Yeah. And there was virtually nothing left of it. And then, and I can't see if you're putting these photos up, but we have a photo of my house, the house where I grew up at 956 South Beach Boulevard in Bay St. Louis before the hurricane, and then after. And hurricane storm surge has such power. People should not underestimate it. In Mississippi, everything, virtually every structure within half a mile of the water was decimated. I mean, there were no buildings to mark an X on, no buildings to be searched. They were gone. It was what we called slab land. And that could happen in some of these areas.
Kathleen Koch, thank you so much for bringing your insights on this.
You bet. Happy to help.